You're listening to the InFocus Interview Show, brought to you by Photofocus.com, an online publication filled with education and inspiration for visual storytellers. This episode is made possible by our partners, Lume Cube, the world's most versatile light, and Drobo, a smart storage solution. Now here's your host, Vanelli.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vanelli. Now, my guest is a California-based photographer who has a distinguished career in Hollywood, working on several number one hit shows, including NCIS, NCIS LA, House, Grey's Anatomy, and many, many more. He's an educator and has shared his talents with many photographers. Please welcome Mike Kubeisy.
Hey, V. How are you, big guy? Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, well, thanks for coming back again. Your knowledge is always very, very valuable.
Thank you.
Good. Now, Mike, our topic is going to be understanding studio lighting.
Great.
And I can't think of a better person to talk about lighting than you. You're like a master at lighting, not just in Hollywood, but on your personal projects.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, let's start off. What are the different types of lights?
Well, you use studio strobes, the big strobe boxes that you put your umbrellas on, not always, usually done in a studio because of the output. Then you have little speed lights that you put on your pop flash on top of your camera, more portable, battery powered. And then you have a variety of other types of lights you can use, from available light with, lighting discs to Lume cubes, whatever it takes to get the job done.
Exactly. And you never shine away from any type of light, from natural light to strobes. And like you even said at one point, a flashlight, for God's sake. It's still a light.
Yep.
Now, the difference, of course, is the quality of light versus the quantity of light. And,
yes.
With that being said, someone starting out for the first time, let's go back to a new photographer finally getting into lighting. What gear would you recommend that they buy, and what mistakes do you feel that some of these newer photographers drawn to light make? Because I know I'm one of them that made that in the very beginning.
Well, I'll go back to when I was in college learning lighting. When we were using studio strobes, back then we were using Norman speed lights, strobe heads, where the head would have a cable and that would plug into a box. It was bulky, but they were built really well, took the abuse of students, and it was a good learning tool. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of photographers are scared of are shadows. So they'll get their one light with an umbrella, and they don't understand the theory of light. The bigger the light modifier, the softer the light. So when they put their standard 32-inch umbrella on a strobe head, and they go into the studio and take a picture, oh, wait a minute, now there's a shadow. Oh, I got to get rid of the shadow. Let's add another light. Okay, so then they add a second light, then they add another shadow, and then they overlight it. They use too many lights, and you'll never get, with what they have, until they learn technique, they'll never get rid of the shadows, and they're scared of shadows. Yet, one of the big things I try to teach is shadows add depth in lighting. And we live in a three-dimensional world. I mean, and you create depth through highlights and shadows. Shadows are a good thing. Now, if you're not getting details in the shadow, then you have to bring the details out, and there's a lot of ways of doing that. But for a beginner, I would recommend, though the speed light, the little pop flash you put on your camera, is cheaper, I would invest in a studio strobe head with a couple modifiers, assuming you have a place to shoot like your garage or a bedroom or somewhere, and learn light in that environment, because you'll learn then how to control the light, how to feather the light, and what different modifiers will do.
Okay, great. Now, I know when I first started, an engineering buddy of mine, who's also a photographer, was all excited, and he convinced me to buy Hensel lights. Now, Hensels are like the Cadillac and Ferrari of lights. They're German-made, extremely expensive. Had I had to do it over again, I think I would have bought lesser expensive lights. Well, what's your take on that?
I agree 100%. As a professional photographer, where you have to always consider your overhead and cost. I know ProPhoto is the big name out there right now, and all the photographers are using the ProPhoto brand. But I got to tell you, I've been using Paul C. Buff products for over 20 years. I started with their Alien Bs shooting on JAG, switched over to their Einsteins, and now I'm currently using their DigiBs. And I love them. Their customer service is fantastic. And I can buy 3 heads and several light modifiers for the cost of one ProPhoto head alone without any modifiers. So that just tells me I'm a better businessman. Uh, well, it is. It's true. And then some people might say, well, the light looks a little buttery, or it's this or that. You know what? We have such a wide variety of diffusing material, gels, all sorts of stuff. So when someone tells me that, I don't agree with it, because it's just a matter of knowing how to use the light. And I would rather put that extra $1,000 in my pocket and apply it to something else, rather than to have a big name on the studio. And believe me, there are a lot of well-known photographers using the Paul C. Buff's equipment, but they're very reasonable. And the big thing is the customer service is fantastic.
Interesting. Now, it's funny you're saying that, because of the Paul C. Buff and Alien B, they never endorsed photographers. That's something they don't do. I'm pretty sure I don't remember ever seeing anyone endorsed by them. They use them, and you find this following that, oh wow, look at this. I love this gear, and like you said, they're so inexpensive. Now,
Right.
Your DigiBs, are they battery operated, or are they?
No, I got to have power. I have to find power. Plug them in via an extension cord or a portable generator. On the sets, when we're on location, they have what they call putt-putts, which are those little Honda 2000 watt generators. So we'll get 1 or 2 of those assigned to us, and we'll light the strobe heads with those. Paul C. Buff does offer these portable batteries that will definitely power the strobe heads, and I just never invested in any of them. They're about, I think, $200-300, and I could see they would be very useful, but just haven't invested in them yet, because they always accommodate me with power. So
Gotcha.
they need to keep the money in the pocket.
And so the difference between, let's say, we talked about speed lights. Those you'll see the Nikon, Canon, Yongnuo has very affordable speed lights.
Right.
Now the difference, the power is great, but you don't have a modeling lamp.
You do not have a modeling lamp. Right.
Exactly.
That's correct. And then you always have to have, most of them power off of 4 AA batteries, or you can get a battery pack, which is 8 AA batteries. You get a little bit more life out of it, but you always have to have plenty of AA batteries with you. But a lot of people sell light modifiers for speed lights, and they do an amazing job. I've used those several times with the high-speed sync, which is becoming more and more popular today, on location with talent, and it looks fantastic. Again, knowing how to use them.
Well, you did a really killer shoot in Las Vegas. You found a couple models. You went out, and I believe one of our buddies was your assistant. What type of gear did you use there?
We didn't use any speed lights. It was just all reflected light. We had big light modifiers, and we added gels to them to warm up the light a little bit. And I had some diffusion from Photofocus for the top to cut the sun that's falling on the talent to soften it. And then Greg used a big reflector that reflected the light into them. And that was sufficient, because we were in Vegas. It was, I think it was in September. We had plenty of sunlight, and we just learned how to use
So you use the sun as your main light source.
Yes.
And once again, if you understand lighting, strobe lights are going to be really easy for you to pick up, but so many people shy away from them, and they shouldn't. But like in your case, like you said, you use the sun as your main light source, and then when it wasn't giving you everything you needed, you added a second light source, which was the reflector,
Correct.
right? So if you wanted to backlight somebody, what would you do?
Put the sun behind them.
Good. And then what happens to the light in front of them?
Then I take a light, the modifier, and bounce the light into them. And then we had another panel with the diffusion material over them so that the sun, one of the girls has, her hair is white. She dyes it or bleaches it. I don't know what the term is. And so any sunlight hitting it just becomes a real big hot spot. So we would diffuse that light with the transparent diffusion. So, one assistant was holding it over her head so that the sunlight wasn't cooking, basically blowing out her hair. And we diffused it. It was really nice. And then the other assistant was holding the light modifier to the front and bouncing the sun that was behind her into her and filled it really nice, real beautiful.
Great. So now let's take that exact same setup and bring it into a studio.
Okay.
Now we don't have the sun, so what would you do in the studio now?
Well, let me back you up. Another thing I could do in that location is use a speed light, use a pop flash. I could use it off camera. So I would set it up with a slave unit. I would probably put a warming gel, a CTO, color temperature orange, on the speed light, the little pop flash, with 4 AA batteries. And then the key tool that I would use is a light meter, because I would have to take that speed light and measure the light that's falling on the talent to balance and match the sunlight that was available behind her. And you can do it without a speed light, but you'd have to pop off several shots and look at your screen on the back of your camera to try and adjust the light. And that's a waste of time. And not only that, you know what? It doesn't look professional. You don't look like you know what you're doing. You're not commanding the set. Oh, wait a minute here. I got to take one more. I got to make another adjustment. Well, hang on. Let me improve it some more. Well, no, let's move the light closer. You look like an idiot. You don't look like you know what you're doing. You use a speed light with a light meter. You pop it off once. Sometimes you pop it off twice, and you're there. You've got your light setup established, done, and the results are going to be fantastic. Again, understanding light and knowing how to use it.
Exactly. So now let's take that into the studio.
Okay, now go back into the studio. Now you set up you set up a backlight, a rear light, a hair light. That would be equivalent to the sun. Then you would take your main light, your key light. I would warm it because that's just the flavor of light that I like. Again, with a CTO as a key light, and then maybe a light modifier, a sheet of foam core or something to fill in the light, to make the light turn on the subject so she's not flat lit. And you create depth with that type of lighting.
Well, see, that's great. And again, the reason why I brought that up is to show people you don't have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars into light. You need light in order to take the photo. So here were a couple of examples that if you don't have a huge budget, then if you're outside, you'll use reflectors and, like you said, diffusers, to where the diffusers will take the light and lessen it. Like some of the subject's hair you were mentioning was too bright. That's a good way of making it less pronounced on her head. And then you use the diffusers to bounce light. And then maybe...
Go ahead, V. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Go on.
Well, I have that fits in a Husky tool bag from Home Depot. I have a speed lighting kit. It has 3 speed lights, some Godox with a transmitter. It has 3 small stands that will extend up to 6 feet, a few different kinds of light modifiers, and a variety of transparent diffusion material with a bunch of clips and modifiers. And that whole bag is probably no more, I'm going to say about $400 and $500. So I can go anywhere with 3 lights and light anything up. Now, I have something similar in my lightwear cases that I take to the TV shows. My professional lighting package on location. Same thing. It's a 3-light setup. It's got 3 DigiBs. I have a lot more grip equipment because we'll be doing more complex lighting. But I would say to you, because you're Vanelli and you're a lot bigger than I am, I would say to you that 95% of my lighting is with 3 lights or up to 3 lights. Now, there are times where they'll give me a heads up. The producer from NCIS will say, hey, we're going to shoot a senator today, and I need it to look real beautiful and stuff. So I might bring in a 4th light. In the studio, there have been times where I've had to use more lights because, there's that old saying, you light the set, then you light the talent, or you light the face. Some DPs will say that light the face. Some will say light the talent. But you got to light the set first and then light your subject. So then you'll use more speed lights, but that's rarely the case. 3 lights will get most of it done. And as I said, for $1,500, $2,000, you can get a very high-end lighting package, very reliable, that'll allow you to purchase a few different light modifiers, some grip equipment, and you can light just about everything. And if you do a lot of location stuff, then you can get these Yongnuo, Godox, a variety of speed lights. Now, nothing against Canon or Nikon, but it's the same thing. You buy a Nikon or Canon speed light for $600. I can buy a Godox or Yongnuo speed light for $100. And if it falls and breaks, I don't care because it's $100. So it's that same thing. Keep the money in your pocket, or take that money that you save and buy modifiers and lighting equipment and grip equipment. There's so many different things beyond just the lighting source that will help you enhance your lighting subject, including, again, a light meter.
Oh, that's great. All right, Mike. All right, now, I read your article on Photofocus. The article was titled, I know, it was I Have Eyes on You, and you talked about the Lume Cube.
Yes.
Good. Now, let's talk about what the Lume Cube is, and then how you used it to overcome challenging lighting conditions. But before we do that, let's just take a quick moment and a quick break to thank our partners.
Lume Cube. Lume Cube is proudly known as the world's most versatile light. It's the smallest, lightest, most compact professional lighting solution on the market. Lume Cube represents the future of LED lighting and is a must-have for anyone looking to create better photos and video. Check out the new Lume Cube strobe, offering anti-collision lighting for drones at lumecube.com. Drobo. Drobo is a smart storage solution that protects photos, videos, and more from hard drive failure, giving peace of mind for the working pro or serious amateur who have a lot of external drives cluttering up their desktop. Save 10% at drobostore.com with the coupon code Photofocus.
And we're back with Hollywood photographer Mike Kubeisy talking about studio lighting. Now, before the break, the question was, what is a Lume Cube, and how did Mike use it to overcome challenging lighting conditions on set?
Well, the Lume Cube is this tiny, powerful, remote-controlled light. Imagine, if you will, you have a what the heck is that thing called? A GoPro. You know the size of a GoPro camera, like 2 by 2 inch square camera. Well, throw the camera out and make it a lighting unit. That's about how big the new Lume Cube is, the 2.0. It's very powerful. You charge it via USB, and it's good for, I'll tell you, it's good for about an hour and a half. But of course, that's all dictated by how much your power output is and, how you're going to use it. I find these things to be outstanding because you can put gels in front of them. I have about 3 of them, and many times I'll have to shoot surveillance of a person or people inside of a car, and I can't put a big strobe head in the car, or obviously a speed light's not going to work. These Lume Cubes again, are very small. I'll put them inside the dash or on the inside of the console where the camera won't see them. And I can adjust the light from my phone via the app, the Lume Cube app, and I can light the talent to look natural and get the details so we can identify who they are. They can be seen by camera. And then you throw a polarizing filter on it to eliminate the reflection of the sky and sun on the windshield, because the polarized light from the windshield will kill you. And so you got to identify who the bad guy is or maybe who the good guy is. And we'll use these Lume Cubes, and I'm telling you, they're fantastic. And they have all kinds of little adapters you can snap onto them via these little magnets. Great, well-designed product. Helps out real good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then you saw the barn doors,
Right.
Even like a little snoot.
Exactly. Because you don't want to flood it with light, because then it looks fake. It looks like light. You know, I mean, you're over lighting it. But if you add a little texture to it, a little let it shadow a little bit, or let some of the light fall off, it looks more natural.
Oh, I like that. Well, Mike, so that brings up to my last question with you is light modifiers. First of all, what are light modifiers? And then what are some of your favorite ones that you like to use?
Well, a light modifier is just, as it said, it modifies the light. You can reflect light through a shiny material, and that shiny material is either silver or gold. It could be just simple white, and it gives a nice soft reflection. Some of them are striped with gold and white, gold and silver, which kind of reduces the contrast a little bit, depending on what color you're going to use. Or it's just translucent. It's diffusion, a one-stop or two-stop diffusion material. As I was talking earlier, you diffuse the light from the top so that it's not so harsh on somebody who has gray hair like myself or white hair like that model that I shot. And you'll create a detail in the talent through the diffused material of the light modifier. And they can be as small as 12 inches, as big as 72. They're usually spring loaded, so they'll collapse, and you can hand hold them. I use the Photoflex 7-in-1 light disc, which gives you a translucent diffusion, either a one-stop or two-stop diffusion, but then it has different skins that you can put over it. And they'll be, as I said, silver and gold, white or black or striped, and they're fantastic. Usually one person can use it, can handle it. They also have the Lastolite Tri-Grip. These actually have, they're kind of a rounded triangle shape, and they have a handle on them. And one person can actually handle two of them, where you can use one as a transparent diffusion for the top light, so that the sun doesn't blow out the highlights. And then the other hand can hold the bounce, the silver, black, or the white, however you want to shoot it, to bounce onto their face. And you can get beautiful headshots. And as I said, they have a really firm handle on there. So again, one person can usually handle two of them. And wow. It's a pretty great product.
Now you have a couple courses on Kelby One.
I do.
One of the courses I remember, I was there with you in Florida when you were filming. I loved it. You put, I believe it was a silk. So you had the subject, right, and behind her there was light. And I looked up and I noticed through the trees, light was giving like a weird pattern. And all of a sudden, dapple light. And you whipped out this silk, and you instructed the grip to put, I think, like 10 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. But you're the type that likes, you embrace shadows, and you embrace the different shades of light.
Yes.
In that particular case, do you remember that instant we're talking about?
I vaguely do. Yeah. I was talking about, yeah. Okay. The light had to be cleaned up. So we used the diffusion material, and there are so many different materials out there. Unfortunately, the general public isn't aware of it because they're only shown what they can get from I'll pick on B&H because they have everything, but you have to know what you're looking for. They'll show you a translucent diffusion that'll be just a soft white. But if you went up to them and said, hey, I want to get a quarter grid diffusion, they'll have it. But you just have to know to ask for it. Or you want a silk, or you want a poly. You have to know what you're asking for. And if you don't know, they can't provide it for you. So one of the things that's awesome about where I work is these gaffers are using all kinds of amazing material. And if I see something I've never seen before, I just ask them. And more often than not, they'll give me a sample of it, a 4-foot square piece of it. And then I can try it out for myself. And, B&H will have it, but you just have to know what to ask for. That's all.
Gotcha. And of course, your courses on Kelby one was on studio lighting. I love the Hollywood portrait you did.
Yes, thank you.
And then another one you did was the
tools, Hollywood tools. Just some of the tools that we use that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And then I did a course with some speed lights, how to light a subject with speed lights.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So again, what you just did here was you showed us, hey, look, there's a lot of different light modifiers, and in 30 minutes, we can't go through every single one of them. So now that people know, you heard the term silk, your diffusion. So if you do search and even watch your classes on Kelby 1, you'll have a better understanding of how they're used and when you could use them.
That's correct.
Great. All right. So last but not least, give me a quick tip you want to give a new photographer just coming out, either out of college or they're just starting out with their photography career. What's one of the tips you'd want to give them? Whether it's on lighting, anything you could think of, what's one tip you want to teach a new photographer?
Well, they're not going to like it, but this is what I tell everybody. Find a photographer that is shooting what you like. Don't go to a landscape photographer if you're into shooting people, or don't go to a product photographer if you're into shooting landscapes. Find a photographer online that you like, this style. And what I did is I assisted them. I actually worked with them for several years. I don't know, depending where you live in the country or in the world for that matter, if that's feasible, if it's feasible to do. But then I would find this photographer and I would just watch tutorials. I would get as much information as I can, hands-on, and to learn from doing it. And I know Dixie Dixon, one of the things I really admire about that young lady is she went to Italy. I mean, she went and did it. She knew she had to assist, and she didn't hold herself back in her little town. And she went out there and did it. And too many people I see nowadays in colleges, even at the college level, they'll give them assignments and they don't even go off campus to shoot anything. And I mean, I'm not trying to bash anybody, but the hunger just isn't there. Everybody has an iPhone, therefore everybody's a photographer. But a lot of people really don't know. They don't know what to do when they get in a tight situation because they've never experienced it before, because they don't push themselves. I was working on a movie. We were doing a huge scene. Everybody wants to know the photographer because everybody knows about photography because of the iPhone. And a young man went up to me and we were talking a little bit, and he went up and said, "Man, I wish I can do what you do." And I looked at him with a pleasant smile and I said, "Hey, bro, I didn't get here by wishing." You got to work, you got to hustle. And that's why, I mean, thank God, that's why I still do what I do. I'm living the dream. But it's not like I walked into it. I mean, I earned it, and I'm still earning it. My shoes can be filled in a moment. And if I'm not on top of my game, the door's going to hit me in the ass.
Well, hey, great. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom today.
Vanelli, it was my pleasure. I mean that. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk and chat with you anytime.
You are listening to the InFocus Interview Show. If you like these interviews, be sure to subscribe to our weekly Photofocus podcast on photofocus.com. Thank you for joining us.